There was once a woman named Elena. She was successful by every outward measure. Good job in marketing, a bright apartment filled with plants, a circle of interesting friends. Yet, something inside her felt hollow. One day, scrolling through her phone late at night, she discovered the world of modern spirituality. She bought her first crystal that very week. Then came the Tibetan singing bowls, the subscription to a meditation app that promised enlightenment in 10 minutes a day, the weekend retreats where everyone wore white linen and spoke in hushed, knowing tones. She collected oracle cards, read every bestseller on manifestation, and posted sunrise photos with captions about raising her vibration. At first, it felt wonderful. She told herself she was growing. But years passed, and the emptiness didn't leave. It actually grew. She became quietly judgmental of friends who weren't on the path. She chased the next teacher, the next workshop, the next profound experience, like a collector hunting rare stamps. Her ego, dressed in flowing spiritual robes, had never been stronger. Elena thought she was becoming free. Instead, she had simply found a more beautiful cage. Does any of this sound familiar to you? If it does, you are not alone. And you are exactly why this book exists. Spiritual materialism, sometimes called spiritual consumerism, is the quiet seduction of our time. It is the tendency to treat spirituality like any other product on the shelf, something to acquire, to showcase, to use for self-improvement and social status. It is collecting experiences, teachings, sacred objects, and spiritual identities, while the deeper transformation remains untouched. The ego doesn't dissolve. It simply rebrands itself as the awakened one. You know the signs. The person who has done ayahuasca 6 times, but still explodes at their partner over dirty dishes. The one who speaks beautifully about non-attachment, yet anxiously tracks how many likes their gratitude practice post receives. The endless scrolling for the next hit of insight, while real presence in ordinary moments feels boring or insufficient. It's subtle. It wears soft colors and gentle language, but it keeps you trapped. Why has this phenomenon exploded now in our modern world? Because the soil was perfectly prepared. We live in a culture of endless consumption, where identity itself is a commodity. Social media turned spirituality into performance art. Capitalism saw an opportunity and packaged ancient wisdom into bite-sized, marketable experiences. Our lives move so fast, our nervous systems so fried, that we crave quick spiritual fixes the same way we crave fast food. Something convenient that promises to fill the void, without asking us to change how we actually live. You feel the ache of meaning, and the marketplace answers, here, by this instead of becoming this. But what if true spirituality is not another thing to consume? What if it is something that consumes you? What if it is the fire that gently, relentlessly burns away the false self, the constructed personality, the endless wanting, the need to be special, even spiritually special, until only what is real remains? That is the central thesis of this audiobook. True spirituality is not additive. It is subtractive. It does not give you a better version of your ego. It dissolves the ego's grip so that life can move through you unhindered. It is not about collecting peak experiences to tell stories about at dinner parties. It is about becoming so deeply present, so honest, so surrendered to what is, that the need for constant becoming finally rests. This journey asks something courageous of you. It asks you to look at the ways you have used spirituality to avoid yourself rather than meet yourself. It asks you to set down the spiritual shopping cart and walk into the raw territory of your own life, with all its boredom, tenderness, failure, and ordinary beauty. And I promise you this, the freedom on the other side is not glamorous. It is far better. It is quiet. It is intimate. It is real. This is not a book of answers. It is a book of honest questions and courageous companionship. I will not give you new things to add to your spiritual collection. Instead, I will walk beside you as we dismantle the collection together, with kindness and occasional laughter at how seriously we've been taking ourselves. You may feel resistance as you listen. That's natural. The ego doesn't surrender its throne easily. When that happens, I invite you to pause, place a hand on your heart, and ask gently, "What am I afraid of losing?" Then keep listening anyway. Because on the other side of this work is something priceless, a spirituality that is not separate from your life, but is your life. A presence that doesn't need to announce itself. A heart that can hold both the sacred and the ordinary without needing to turn either into a performance. A quiet dignity that no trend can give you and no scandal can take away. If you have ever felt that something was missing even as you did all the right spiritual things, this book is for you. If you are tired of performing awakening and long for the real thing, even if it's humbler than you imagined, this book is for you. If you sense that the deepest freedom might look nothing like the Instagram version, welcome home. I invite you to walk this path with honesty and courage, not as another seeker collecting more experiences, but as someone willing, at last, to be found by the truth that was never separate from you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Seductive Trap: What Spiritual Materialism Really Is. You felt it, haven't you? That quiet pull towards something deeper. Maybe it started with a book that cracked open your heart, or a meditation that brought unexpected peace, or a conversation that made the world feel suddenly alive. These moments are real. They matter. But somewhere along the way, something subtle shifted. The search for truth began to feel more like a search for the next beautiful experience, the next insight, the next version of yourself that would finally feel spiritual enough. This is spiritual materialism, and it is one of the most seductive traps on the human journey. Chogyam Trungpa, the brilliant and uncompromising Tibetan teacher, named this phenomenon decades ago. He saw students arriving in the West, hungry for awakening, yet carrying the same old habits of acquisition. Spiritual materialism, he taught, is when we use the path to strengthen the ego instead of dissolving it. We turn spirituality into another realm to conquer, another identity to polish, another set of credentials to display. The ego doesn't disappear on the spiritual path. Very often, it simply puts on new robes. Today, in our 21st century world, this trap has become breathtakingly sophisticated. It wears the soft glow of aesthetic Instagram feeds, the calm voice of wellness podcasts, the promise of transformation sold in weekend retreats that cost more than some people's rent. It's not evil. It's not malicious. It's just the ego doing what it does best, surviving, adapting, and finding new ways to feel safe and special. Imagine a beautiful garden. Genuine spirituality is the slow, patient work of tending the soil, pulling weeds with your own hands, learning the rhythm of seasons, and surrendering to what wants to grow. Spiritual materialism is arriving with a camera, taking perfect pictures of flowers someone else planted, buying expensive tools you never learned to use, and posting about your deep connection to nature while the actual garden slowly withers from neglect. You see the difference? In genuine spiritual work, you are willing to be humbled. You sit in the mess of your own mind and heart. You stay when it gets uncomfortable. You surrender your need to look good, to be right, to be seen as evolved. Real growth asks you to let go of the self you've carefully constructed. It invites ego dissolution, not as a dramatic event, but as 1,000 small, often painful deaths to who you thought you were. Spiritual consumerism, on the other hand, collects. It gathers experiences like souvenirs. You do the ayahuasca retreat, the silent vipassana, the breathwork journey, the sound bath, the latest somatic modality. Each one becomes another bead on the necklace of your spiritual identity. I'm the kind of person who does these things, the ego whispers proudly. And yet, when the difficult colleague at work triggers you on Monday morning, the same old reactivity returns. The necklace stays beautiful on the outside, but inside, very little has actually changed. There was a woman once called Sarah. She had an altar that would make any spiritual influencer jealous. Crystals from Brazil, statues from Bali, books signed by famous teachers. Her social media was a carefully curated temple of awakening. She spoke beautifully about non-attachment and presence. But in her marriage, she couldn't tolerate her husband's emotional clumsiness. She would spiritual bypass the pain by saying, "I'm just holding space for his process," while secretly judging him for not being as evolved as she was. The ego had found the perfect hiding place in the language of spirituality itself. Have you ever done something similar? The marketplace of enlightenment is booming right now. Mindfulness has been commodified into apps that promise to reduce your stress so you can be more productive at your capitalist job. Yoga has become another fitness trend with $1,000 memberships. There are coaches selling embodiment and quantum healing with the same slick marketing once used for weight loss programs. And the subtle message is always the same. Buy this, do this, consume this, and you will finally arrive. But arrival is the ego's favorite fantasy. The truth is much quieter. The truth is that you are already here. The path isn't about getting somewhere else. It's about meeting what is, completely, without the filters of self-image. Let's look closer at how the ego hijacks the path. You begin meditating to find peace, and soon you're tracking your streak, comparing your depth to others, feeling superior because you sit longer. You study non-duality teachings, and instead of letting them dissolve your sense of separation, you use the concepts to dismiss your emotions, your relationships, your humanity, spiritual bypassing dressed up as transcendence. You chase peak experiences, those beautiful, expansive states, and then spend years trying to repeat them, turning the memory of grace into another thing to grasp. This is the contrast that matters most. Real growth is often invisible. It shows up as the ability to stay present when your heart is breaking. It looks like listening deeply to someone you disagree with without needing to correct them. It feels like the quiet willingness to not know. It's the softening around your edges, the decreasing need to broadcast your journey, the growing capacity to love without conditions. Spiritual performance, by contrast, is highly visible. It has aesthetics. It has language. It posts quotes. It drops names of teachers and retreats. It wants recognition. And here's the painful part. It can feel incredibly meaningful in the moment. The ego loves meaning. It loves feeling like it's doing something important. You might ask yourself, When was the last time your spiritual practice made you smaller instead of bigger? When did it strip away rather than add? When did it leave you more humble, more ordinary, more available to life exactly as it is? This is the medicine. The commodification of mindfulness offers a perfect example. What began as a profound training in awareness has, for many, become another productivity hack. Sit for 10 minutes so you can crush your goals. Be present so you can optimize your performance. The ancient invitation to die to yourself before you die has been repackaged into better sleep and lower cortisol levels. Useful? Perhaps. Transformative? Only if you're willing to go all the way. The same pattern appears in relationships. You meet someone on a retreat. The connection feels electric, spiritual, faded. But instead of allowing the relationship to be a mirror for your own growth, that is, your projections, your fears, your need to be special, you turn it into another spiritual status symbol. My twin flame, my soul partner on the path. The ego has entered the temple of intimacy and started redecorating. This is not a judgment. This is an invitation. The path is littered with these traps because the ego is terrified of disappearing. It would rather be a spiritual ego than no ego at all. And that fear deserves compassion. It has protected you for a long time. So how do we begin to shatter this pattern? First, bring awareness without shame. Notice when your practice becomes about collecting rather than surrendering. Notice when you're performing awakening rather than living it. Notice the subtle pride that arises when you share your latest insight or retreat photo. Don't attack yourself for it. Just see it. Seeing is the beginning of freedom. Try this simple practice right now, wherever you are. Close your eyes for a moment. Ask yourself, what am I trying to get from my spiritual life right now? Sit with the question. Let it sink in. Is it peace? Status? Identity? Safety? Validation? Love? The answer may surprise you. And whatever arises, meet it with kindness. This honesty is itself a profound spiritual act. Genuine spirituality is not about becoming a more impressive version of yourself. It is about discovering who you are when all the versions fall away. It is love meeting itself in the mirror of ordinary life. It is the courage to show up without your spiritual costume. You don't need to abandon your practices, your teachers, your communities. You only need to hold them more lightly. Use them as tools, not treasures. Let them serve truth rather than self-image. You are not failing if you've fallen into this trap. Almost everyone does. The question is whether you will keep falling unconsciously or whether you will begin to see the pattern with clear eyes and a compassionate heart. Chapter 2. From Sacred Temples to Spiritual Supermarkets. The Rise of Spiritual Consumerism. Close your eyes for just a second and picture an ancient temple, stone worn smooth by centuries of sincere feet. Incense rising not for show, but as prayer. Silence thick with presence. Now, let that image dissolve. Watch as the temple walls transform into bright shelves lined with crystals, essential oils, and vision board kits. The sacred has not disappeared. It has been repackaged. Welcome to the spiritual supermarket. But how did we get here? Let's travel back together. The 1960s. Young hearts, weary of materialism and war, turned eastward. They sought gurus, meditation, expanded consciousness. Genuine hunger moved through the counterculture. Beats and hippies sat at the feet of teachers from India and Tibet. Something real was stirring, but seeds of something else were planted too. The West, with its genius for packaging and profit, began to notice. What if this awakening could be sold? By the 1970s and 80s, the New Age movement bloomed. Books, workshops, and channeled messages multiplied. The self-help industry exploded, promising not just enlightenment, but success, wealth, perfect relationships. Think of it, spirituality meeting the American dream. You could have it all, inner peace and outer abundance, if you just bought the right program. Capitalism didn't destroy spirituality. It simply adapted it. Individualism became the soil. Instead of dissolving the separate self, the new message whispered, enhance the self. Make it more spiritual, more evolved, more attractive. And digital technology? It poured gasoline on the fire. Suddenly, the path wasn't walked in quiet communities. It was performed on screens for likes, followers, and affiliate commissions. You know this world. Scroll through your phone, and there it is. The influencer in flowing white linen, legs crossed in lotus position on a Bali cliff at sunrise. The caption, my daily non-attachment practice. The comments flood in with fire emojis and, this healed me. Meanwhile, the comments section becomes the new temple. Validation replaces realization. This is spiritual FOMO in full force. Fear of missing out. The anxiety that someone else is awakening faster, deeper, more authentically than you. So you sign up. You buy the ticket. You book the $5,000 ayahuasca retreat in the jungle because the photos look transcendent. You purchase the rose quartz collection to open your heart chakra. You chase the certification that will let you call yourself a certified breathwork facilitator or intuitive coach. And here's where it gets tender. None of these things are inherently bad. Plants have been used in sacred ceremonies for millennia. Crystals hold beauty. Breath is life. The problem isn't the tools. It's what the ego does with them in a marketplace culture. Let me tell you about Michael, a driven executive in his mid-40s, burned out from years of climbing the corporate ladder. He discovered yoga during a company wellness program. At first, it helped. The breathing softened his constant tension. But soon, yoga wasn't enough. He needed the advanced training, then the teacher training, then the retreat in India. His LinkedIn profile transformed from business metrics to sacred geometry symbols and quotes about surrender. At work, he began dropping spiritual phrases in meetings. I'm just flowing with the universe on this deadline, while still pressuring his team relentlessly. The ego hadn't dissolved. It had simply upgraded its wardrobe. You've seen versions of this, haven't you? The subtle ones cut deepest. The spiritual influencer who speaks powerfully about collective liberation while building a personal brand worth millions. The performative activism, where sacred words about justice become social currency rather than calls to humble inner work. The friend who collects spiritual identities like badges. I'm an empath, a starseed, a manifester, a neurosomatic practitioner. Each new label adds distance from simple, raw presence. Contrast this with the old temple again. In genuine traditions, the teacher often sent students away from comfort, into silence, into service, into the difficult task of facing oneself without distraction. The path stripped you. Today's spiritual supermarket adds to you. New clothes, new vocabulary, new experiences to post about. The ego grows fatter on spirituality while pretending it's getting lighter. Look at the economics. The global wellness industry now exceeds $4 trillion. Retreats cost what used to be a year's savings for many. Certifications promise professional legitimacy in a field that once required only sincerity and time. Sacred objects, once passed with reverence, are mass-produced and drop-shipped. Capitalism didn't just commercialize spirituality. It trained us to need constant spiritual consumption to feel we're progressing. And the psychology runs deep. In an age of isolation, spiritual consumerism offers belonging. In a time of uncertainty, it sells certainty through the next modality. In a culture obsessed with self-improvement, it gives you another way to optimize your soul. The ego loves optimization. It turns even surrender into a KPI. But something profound has been lost in this transaction, and I want you to feel it. What's been lost is the depth that only time, ordinariness, and real community can provide. The kind of transformation that happens not in a glamorous retreat, but in the quiet repetition of showing up for your life exactly as it is. The humility that comes when no one is watching. The raw encounter with mystery that can't be packaged into a weekend special. I once sat with an elderly woman in a small meditation group. No fancy cushions. No Instagram-worthy altar. Just folding chairs in a community center. She had been practicing for 40 years. When she spoke about her journey, there were no dramatic stories of peak experiences. Only this: I learned to sit with my anger until it stopped needing to be special. I learned to love my ordinary days. Her presence filled the room more than any charismatic speaker I've encountered. That is what's being lost when spirituality becomes content. You feel the ache of this loss, don't you? That quiet longing for something real in a world of filtered awakenings. So let's pause here. Right now, place one hand on your heart. Take 3 slow breaths. Ask yourself gently, what have I collected in the name of spirituality? List them silently: experiences, objects, identities, teachings. Now ask the deeper question: which of these have truly stripped me of illusion, and which have simply decorated it? Feel the difference between the two. No shame, just clear seeing. This honest glance is an act of love toward yourself. Also, stop asking, what's the next thing I need to do or buy to grow? Instead, start asking, what am I willing to stop doing, stop chasing, stop performing, in order to finally meet myself? The spiritual supermarket will always be there, brightly lit and full of promises. You don't need to burn it down. You only need to stop sleepwalking through its aisles. Choose consciously. Take what serves truth. Leave what feeds performance. The rise of spiritual consumerism didn't happen because people are shallow. It happened because we are human, aching for meaning in a fragmented world. The same hunger that led seekers to ancient temples now fills online shopping carts. That hunger is beautiful. It deserves respect, but it also deserves direction. In the sacred transaction of modern spirituality, you may have gained beautiful aesthetics and compelling experiences, but what have you lost in exchange? And more importantly, what are you willing to reclaim starting today? You are not too late. The real temple was never outside you. It waits in the quiet courage to choose depth over display, presence over performance, truth over trend. Chapter 3: The 10 Warning Signs You're Caught in Spiritual Materialism. Here, we turn the mirror toward ourselves with kindness and clarity. This chapter isn't here to judge you. It's here to illuminate, to help you see the subtle patterns, because seeing them is the beginning of real freedom. Let's walk through the 10 warning signs together. Listen gently. Let each one land in your heart. Pause when something resonates. These aren't accusations. They're invitations to deeper honesty. The first sign is spiritual identity addiction. You begin to define yourself primarily as a spiritual person, the seeker, the awakened one. the one on the path. In everyday life, this shows up when you casually mention your meditation practice in conversations, not to connect, but to position yourself as deeper than others. At work, you might frame difficult projects as spiritual tests, while still feeling secretly superior to colleagues who don't share your language. The ego mechanism here is clever. Instead of dissolving the self, it builds a new, improved spiritual self-image, a shinier identity to defend and display. Recognize it by asking yourself, am I more identified with being spiritual than with being present? Next time you feel the urge to share your practice, pause. Ask, is this sharing from love or from the need to be seen as special? This small pause creates space for genuine humility to grow. The second sign is experience chasing. You move from one peak moment to the next, retreat highs, breathwork journeys, ecstatic dances, always seeking the next transcendent state. Like a traveler collecting postcards, you gather intense experiences, but feel strangely empty when ordinary Tuesday arrives. The ego loves this because it turns spirituality into an addiction to novelty and intensity, avoiding the quiet work of integrating what you've already received. Think of the friend who returns from Bali glowing, posts the sunset photos, then spirals into anxiety 2 weeks later when life feels flat again. You might recognize this in yourself when you scan retreat calendars during moments of boredom, rather than sitting with the boredom itself. At such moments, instead of asking, what's the next big experience? Try, what does this ordinary moment want to teach me right now? This shifts you from chasing to receiving, from grasping to allowing. Third comes teacher shopping. You hop from one guide to another, always seeking the perfect transmission, the ultimate method. 1 month, it's a non-duality teacher, the next an indigenous shaman, then a neuroscience-backed mindfulness coach. The underlying mechanism? The ego avoids real commitment and surrender by keeping options open. It stays in control by never fully giving itself to one path long enough for true transformation. Modern example: scrolling endless teacher profiles online, feeling excited by each new bio, yet never staying long enough to face the discomfort that real practice brings. To see it in yourself, notice if your bookshelf or hard drive holds more unfinished courses than deeply lived ones. Choose one practice or teaching that already resonates and commit to it for 30 days without adding anything new. Watch what arises. That resistance is often the doorway. Fourth is sacred object hoarding. Your space fills with crystals, statues, tarot decks, singing bowls, and sacred jewelry. Each item carries a story, a promise of deeper connection. Yet, the altar grows cluttered while your actual presence remains distracted. The ego uses these beautiful objects as external anchors for an inner security it hasn't yet cultivated. They become substitutes for the harder work of embodiment. You see this in the beautiful Instagram homes where every shelf screams, "I am spiritual," yet the inhabitants still snap at their partners over small things. Recognize it compassionately by asking, do these objects support my practice, or have they become the practice? Try a mini cleanse. Remove 1 or 2 items and sit in the simpler space. Feel what emerges. Often, it's a surprising sense of relief and return to what truly matters. The fifth sign is performative vulnerability. You share your healing journey openly. Trauma stories, shadow work insights, emotional breakthroughs. But the sharing carries an invisible hunger for validation, likes, or being seen as evolved. In relationships, This might appear as processing every conflict through spiritual language while avoiding simple accountability. The ego mechanism turns raw pain into spiritual currency. Authenticity becomes performance. A workplace version of this could be discussing holding space in team meetings while actually avoiding difficult feedback. To illuminate this in yourself, after sharing something personal, quietly ask, "Did I share to connect or to be admired for sharing?" This honest check cultivates true intimacy rather than spiritual theater. You begin to heal for its own sake, which feels quieter, but infinitely more liberating. Sixth is spiritual bypassing. You use beautiful concepts, such as non-attachment, everything is perfect, it's all illusion, to sidestep difficult emotions, messy relationships, or real-world responsibilities. Anger arises, and you call it lower vibration. Grief shows up, and you quote teachings on impermanence instead of feeling it fully. The ego adores this. It gets to feel spiritually advanced while avoiding the vulnerable ground of being human. Remember the colleague who responds to every setback with "the universe is testing me," yet never addresses their own patterns? Or the partner who dismisses your hurt feelings as your ego talking? Notice it in you through this practice. When strong emotion comes, name it simply first. This is anger. This is fear. Stay with the raw feeling before layering spiritual interpretation. This builds real resilience. Seventh, comparison and spiritual superiority. You catch yourself judging others' paths as less advanced. Their practice is too beginner. Their teacher is problematic. Their awakening seems superficial. Meanwhile, your own journey feels uniquely deep. The ego's mechanism is classic, elevating yourself by diminishing others, creating false separation even in the name of oneness. In daily life, this appears in subtle eye rolls at the basic yoga student or internal superiority during family dinners when spirituality comes up. Recognize it by noticing the quiet rush of pride when you feel more awake than someone else. But the truth is, everyone is exactly where they need to be, including you. Practice genuine curiosity instead of comparison. Ask others about their experience without filtering it through your own map. This softens the heart beautifully. Eighth is certification collecting. You gather trainings, diplomas, and titles: Reiki Master, Shamanic Practitioner, Enlightened Coach, like badges of spiritual accomplishment. Each new certificate promises legitimacy and expertise. The ego uses these to feel worthy, to have something to offer, to stand out in the marketplace of awakening. Picture the person with a signature after their name listing multiple modalities, yet who still struggles with basic presence in conversation. See it in yourself by reflecting. Am I collecting tools to help others or credentials to feel adequate? Focus for a season on applying what you already know rather than learning more. Depth over breadth. Mastery through simplicity. Ninth is aesthetic spirituality. Your practice becomes more about the look than the depth. The perfect meditation corner. The right outfit for yoga. The curated feed of sacred imagery. Spirituality merges with lifestyle branding. The ego finds safety in surface beauty while the inner work stays superficial. You recognize this when preparing for a practice feels more like styling a photo shoot than entering silence. Or when the joy of practice diminishes if the external conditions aren't Instagram worthy. Ask yourself, would I still do this if no one ever saw it? Simplify one element of your practice this week. Remove the aesthetics and meet the raw essence. The power you discover there is profound. Finally, the 10th sign is social media spirituality. Your practice becomes content. You post your meditations, share your insights, document your retreats with intention. Yet, the act of documenting subtly changes the experience. The ego turns private communion into public performance, seeking engagement metrics as proof of progress. Modern examples of this would be filming your sunrise practice while missing the actual sunrise, or turning a moment of genuine insight into a polished caption. After posting something spiritual, notice if you keep checking for responses. Try a period of private practice with no sharing. Let the fruits nourish only you. This often reveals how much of your path has been shaped by the invisible audience. These patterns are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of a sincere heart that has been navigating a very confusing marketplace. You have been seeking. You have been trying. That desire itself is sacred. You are already waking up. The very act of recognizing these patterns shows your inner wisdom is rising. The path ahead feels lighter because you see more clearly. You are not moving backward. You are shedding what no longer serves, so you can walk forward unburdened, authentic, and truly free. The ego may whisper fear at this honesty, but your deeper self feels relief. Trust that. You are capable of genuine transformation, not the shiny kind sold in marketplaces, but the quiet, real kind that touches every ordinary moment of your beautiful life. Chapter 4. The Hidden Cost. What spiritual consumerism steals from you. Spiritual consumerism promises everything: peace, awakening, wholeness. Yet, it often delivers the opposite, wrapped in beautiful packaging. It reinforces the ego while pretending to dissolve it. It creates spiritual bypassing that numbs your humanity. It leads to emotional flatness, disappointment fatigue, and a quiet despair that settles in after years of seeking without arriving. Most painfully, it distances you from genuine intimacy with the divine, the raw, living presence that needs no purchase, no performance, only your honest heart. Imagine a beautiful river flowing toward the sea. Genuine spirituality is diving into that river, letting the current carry you, surrendering to its depth even when it pulls you under. Spiritual consumerism is standing on the bank, taking photos of the water, buying fancy gear, and collecting stories about swimming, while never getting truly wet. Over time, the photos feel empty, the stories grow stale, and the soul still thirsts. Let's look closer. One of the deepest costs is the quiet reinforcement of the ego. Every new tool, retreat, or identity adds another layer to the self you're trying to transcend. The ego doesn't vanish. It evolves into a spiritual version, more sophisticated, better dressed in sacred language, harder to spot. Psychology calls this the false self. Contemplative traditions name it the subtle obstacle on the path. You chase growth, yet remain trapped in the same small room, only now decorated with mandalas and affirmation cards. Think of David, a man I once knew well. For 15 years, he moved through the spiritual marketplace. He had the certifications, the altar, the impressive library. At work, he led mindfulness sessions for his team and spoke of compassion. Yet, in his marriage, he couldn't tolerate his wife's simple need for emotional presence. He would respond to her tears with teachings on impermanence. The ego had grown stronger in its spiritual robes. When his marriage finally crumbled, the collapse revealed what years of consumption had hidden. Very little real softening had occurred. The highs of retreats faded fast. The emptiness that followed cut deeper each time. This leads us to another cost: emotional numbness. When you use spirituality to bypass discomfort rather than meet it, something vital begins to shut down. You label anger as low vibration. You call anxiety just energy moving. Grief gets reframed before it's fully felt. Slowly, you lose touch with the raw aliveness of being human. Relationships suffer. You show up with a polished presence, but little real warmth. Intimacy becomes difficult because true closeness requires unguarded vulnerability, not spiritual concepts. Have you noticed this in your own life? The way certain feelings now arrive with a spiritual footnote attached? Next time a strong emotion arises, name it plainly, such as "this is sadness." Then place your hand on your body where you feel it. Stay with the sensation for 2 full minutes without interpreting or transcending it. Just be with it. This small act begins to thaw the numbness. It returns you to the river. Then comes disappointment fatigue. The cycle is exhausting. You invest in the next big thing, the expensive workshop, the powerful plant medicine journey, the life-changing teacher. For a while, the high feels real. Energy surges. Insights sparkle. You post about transformation. But weeks or months later, ordinary life returns with its familiar challenges. The old patterns reappear, often stronger, because they were never truly met. Disappointment stacks upon disappointment. You begin to wonder, deep down, if any of it actually works. A quiet despair settles in, not dramatic, but persistent, like a low-grade grief for the awakening that never quite landed. I remember Maria's story. She was a bright, sincere woman in her 30s, deeply committed to her path. She attended retreat after retreat. Her social media told a story of constant expansion, but behind the scenes, she felt like a fraud. "I keep buying the promise," she said, tears in her eyes. "But I still yell at my kids when I'm tired. I still scroll for hours when I'm anxious. What's wrong with me?" Nothing was wrong with her. She had simply been caught in the cycle, temporary highs feeding deeper emptiness. The marketplace had sold her experiences, but it couldn't give her the slow, grounded transformation that only consistent, humble practice brings. Contemplative traditions have warned of this for centuries. The Desert Fathers spoke of aesthesia, a spiritual boredom that follows endless seeking without surrender. Modern psychology points to hedonic adaptation. We adapt to pleasure quickly, needing stronger doses for the same effect. Spiritual consumerism weaponizes both. It keeps you consuming instead of deepening. It prevents real transformation by keeping the focus outward, on the next method, the next teacher, the next fix, rather than inward, where the real work patiently waits. And perhaps the greatest theft of all is the loss of genuine intimacy with the divine, with the sacred mystery that lives in ordinary moments. When spirituality becomes a product, the relationship turns transactional. You approach the divine as a consumer seeking benefits rather than a lover seeking union. The wonder fades. The simple, wordless communion that once arose in silent mornings gets replaced by techniques and checklists. You lose the tender, personal encounter that no tradition can fully package. Contrast this with the old stories of mystics who sat in caves or small rooms with nothing but their sincere hearts. They met something real, not because of perfect conditions, but because they brought their whole, unpolished selves. You can still have that. The divine has not moved. It waits patiently behind all the noise. These costs accumulate. Reinforced ego, numbed emotions, fatigue of spirit, loss of real intimacy. They keep you circling in beautiful loops that never quite reach the center. Yet, here is where radical hope enters. Recognizing the cost is itself the turning point. The moment you feel the ache clearly, without defense, something honest wakes up. That honesty is the seed of true freedom. Many who hit rock bottom in the spiritual marketplace describe the same pattern. The collapse becomes the greatest grace. The shiny tools fall away. The performances end. What remains is a simpler, more sincere desire to know the truth, to love deeply, to live fully, without needing to look spiritual while doing it. You are not too far gone. No matter how many years or dollars you've spent, this moment of seeing offers a fresh start. The path has always been here, waiting beneath the marketplace noise. It asks less and gives more. It invites you to stop collecting and start surrendering, to trade performance for presence, to exchange the temporary high for a quieter, steadier flame. Let me offer you a practice right now, wherever you sit. Close your eyes gently. Place both hands over your heart. Breathe slowly. Ask yourself with kindness, what has spiritual consumerism cost me? Let the answers come without judgment. Then ask, what am I willing to release in order to reclaim what's been lost? Feel the quiet power in that willingness. This is where transformation begins, not with another purchase, but with courageous honesty. The hidden costs have been great, but your capacity for freedom is greater. You carry within you the same light that has guided sincere seekers across every tradition. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It only needs your honest yes. Chapter 5: Shattering the Illusion: Practices for Authentic Awakening. In this chapter, the mirror turns from reflection to action. This is where hope becomes practice, where illusion begins to shatter, and where you step into the kind of awakening that no marketplace can sell and no ego can fake. Real transformation does not arrive in dramatic peaks or expensive packages. It grows slowly, like an ancient oak sinking roots deep into the earth. It asks for your consistent presence, not your perfect performance. Let us walk together into practices that return you to this grounded power. Begin with ego honesty. This is the foundation. Every day, make space for radical truth-telling with yourself. Each morning, sit for 5 minutes and ask yourself gently, where am I performing spirituality today? Where am I using beautiful concepts to avoid simple feelings? Speak the answers out loud or write them in a plain notebook. No judgment, just seeing. There was a woman named Megan who practiced this daily. She worked in a busy marketing firm and had spent years chasing spiritual highs on weekends. When she started this honest check-in, she noticed how often she used non-duality teachings to dismiss her anger at her boss. The simple act of naming it, "I'm bypassing my frustration right now," began to dissolve the pattern. Within months, her relationships at work and home grew more real. She didn't become less spiritual. She became more human. And in that humanity, something deeper opened. This leads naturally to radical simplicity. Strip away the extras. Choose 1 or 2 core practices and stay with them long enough for them to work on you. Perhaps it's simply sitting in silence each morning, or walking outside with full attention, or mindful breathing while doing household tasks. The marketplace will always offer more. Your soul needs less. Once a week, clear a small area in your home of all spiritual objects. Sit there with nothing but yourself. Feel the initial discomfort. Then feel the surprising freedom. Ask, can I meet the sacred without decoration? Many people discover that the deepest peace arises not from accumulation, but from subtraction. Simplicity creates space where the ego cannot hide. Now, consider commitment over consumption. This is a powerful shift. Instead of jumping to the next teacher, the next retreat, or the next technique, commit to what you already have. Choose one path, one practice, and stay with it through boredom, through dryness, through the times when it feels ordinary. Real awakening lives in this staying. In your relationships, this looks like showing up fully instead of escaping into spiritual language when conflict arises. At work, it means bringing presence to difficult meetings rather than mentally planning your next vision quest. A man named Carlos shared with me how this changed everything. After years of teacher shopping, he committed to one simple meditation practice for a full year. No retreats, no new books. At first he felt deprived. Then something shifted. The practice began to penetrate his daily life. He listened better to his children. He handled stress with more grace. Commitment had done what consumption never could. The power of ordinary mindfulness cannot be overstated. You don't need special conditions. The present moment is the real temple. Practice bringing full attention to everyday activities. When you wash dishes, feel the water, the temperature, the texture of each plate. When you walk to your car, notice your feet meeting the ground. When your partner speaks, listen without preparing your response. A simple daily exercise. Pick one routine activity, like brushing your teeth, eating a meal, commuting, and give it your complete attention for 1 week. No podcasts, no scrolling, just presence. You will likely meet resistance. Good. That resistance is your teacher. Stay with it. On the other side waits a quiet joy that no retreat can deliver. Surrender is the golden thread running through all genuine practice. It is not giving up. It is giving over. It is releasing the need to control your awakening, to measure it, to broadcast it. You surrender by willingly meeting whatever arises in your practice and in your life, like boredom, doubt, joy, grief, without needing to fix or transcend it immediately. When difficult emotions come, instead of reaching for a teaching or technique, place your hand on your heart and whisper inwardly, "I am here. I am willing to feel this." Repeat it softly. Let the feeling move through you like weather through the sky. Surrender creates the space where real dissolution of ego can happen, not as a one-time event, but as 1,000 small yes. Now, about engaging with teachers, books, retreats, and tools without falling back into old patterns. This matters deeply. Use them, but hold them lightly. Approach a teacher not as a savior, but as a fellow traveler who may have walked farther on certain trails. Read books with discernment. Take what resonates. Leave the rest, and never let concepts replace your own direct experience. Attend retreats when your heart genuinely calls you, but go with clear intention, not to collect another peak, but to deepen presence. Before booking, ask yourself, am I running towards something or away from something? With sacred tools, whether meditation apps, crystals, or practices, use them as supports, not crutches. Set boundaries. For example, use a meditation app for 30 days, then delete it and sit without guidance. This prevents dependency. The goal is always freedom, not better consumption. Community without hierarchy offers another vital practice. Seek simple, sincere circles where no one claims to be above another. Perhaps a small group that meets weekly to sit in silence together, then shares honestly without advice giving. or a walking group where conversation flows naturally without spiritual performance. These communities remind you that awakening is not a solo achievement or a status game. It is shared humanity turning toward truth. There used to be a small meditation circle that met in a community center every Tuesday evening. No guru, no fees, just people showing up as they were: tired parents, stressed professionals, retired elders. Over time, their simple togetherness created more transformation than many expensive programs. They held space for each other's ordinariness. In that space, masks fell away. Real growth happened. Finally, devotion without idolatry. Let your heart open to something greater than yourself. Call it the divine, awareness, love, the mystery, without turning any person, teaching, or experience into an idol. Devotion is the quiet love that fuels your practice. It brings sweetness to the sometimes dry work of honesty and simplicity. Light a candle not as performance, but as a small gesture of remembrance. Offer your day with a simple prayer. May this life serve truth. Feel the warmth this creates. Contrast this living devotion with the worship of personalities or methods that so often happens in spiritual consumerism. True devotion sets you free. It does not bind you to another's image. Weave these practices together into a gentle daily rhythm. Adjust as needed. The exact form matters less than your sincere heart behind it. You may stumble. You may catch yourself falling back into old patterns. That is normal. When you do, smile gently at yourself and return. Each return strengthens you. The path is not linear. It is a spiral, bringing you deeper with every turn. Feel the shift happening even now as you listen. You are no longer a consumer of spirituality. You are becoming its living expression, imperfect, sincere, rooted, and free. The illusion shatters not through force, but through your patient, loving return to what is real. The marketplace will continue its bright promises. You can smile at it with understanding and keep walking. Your life itself is becoming the practice. Your relationships the temple. Your ordinary days the awakening. Chapter 6. Living it. Spirituality without the spiritual marketplace. True integration means bringing presence into every corner of your life. At work, you no longer need to announce your spirituality. You simply show up differently. When the pressure builds in a meeting, you feel your feet on the floor, notice the tension in your shoulders, and return to the breath. You listen to colleagues with genuine curiosity instead of preparing clever responses. A quiet strength emerges. You handle conflict with less reactivity and more space. The old need to appear evolved falls away. What remains is useful, humble presence that actually helps the team. I think of Thomas, a software engineer who once filled his desk with crystals and quoted spiritual teachers in emails. After stepping away from the consumption cycle, he simplified. Now his practice is pausing for 3 conscious breaths before answering any difficult message. His colleagues notice something different. Not flashy wisdom, but steadiness. People come to him more often, not because he sounds spiritual, but because he feels real. In relationships, this integration becomes tender and revealing. You stop using spiritual language to bypass discomfort. When your partner frustrates you, instead of labeling it their ego, you feel the heat in your chest and stay with it. You speak from honesty rather than performance. Intimacy deepens because you bring your whole self. Imperfect, sometimes reactive, always learning. The contrast is striking. Spiritual consumerism creates distance dressed as depth. Mature spirituality creates closeness through raw presence. During your next conversation with someone close, put away your phone. Listen as if this moment matters more than any insight you could share. When the urge arises to offer a teaching, pause and ask yourself, am I trying to help or to feel wise? That small check-in can transform your connections. With family and children, ordinary holiness shines brightest. You model presence by playing without distraction, by sitting with their strong emotions instead of rushing to fix them. Bedtime stories become sacred, not because of special rituals, but because you are fully there. One mother shared how she stopped taking her kids to expensive kids' yoga classes and simply started breathing together for 2 minutes each morning. The giggles and wiggles didn't matter. The shared presence did. Her children began carrying that calm into their school days. Now, consider technology. In a hyper-consumerist world, your phone can become either a chain or a tool. Set boundaries with love. Perhaps no spiritual content scrolling after sunset. Use devices for connection and learning, but never let them replace direct experience. When you feel the pull to post about your practice, ask gently, does this serve truth or feed the old need to be seen? Many people discover that reducing spiritual content intake creates more actual spirituality in their lives. The mind grows quieter. The heart grows fuller. Money becomes a powerful arena for practice. Instead of spending on the next experience that promises awakening, you ask, how can I use resources in service of what is real? This might mean supporting a local community project, giving quietly to someone in need, or simply choosing contentment with less. The ego once used money to buy spiritual status. Now money flows with discernment and generosity. There is deep freedom in realizing you don't need to purchase depth. It is already available. Your body, too, becomes a beloved friend rather than a project to optimize. You move because movement itself is prayer. You eat with attention. You rest without guilt. The endless search for the perfect embodiment practice gives way to simple respect for this form that carries you through life. Walk barefoot on grass when you can. Feel the air on your skin. The body stops being another area for spiritual achievement and becomes a living altar of presence. This is mature spirituality. It wears the clothes of humility. You stop needing to broadcast your journey. You become less interesting to the old ego and more available to life. Service flows naturally, not as grand gestures posted online, but as showing up for what is needed in front of you. Endurance grows because you no longer chase highs. You learn to stay through the flat seasons, the doubts, the ordinary Tuesdays. Joy becomes quieter and more sustainable, arising from simple things, a shared meal, a kind word, the sudden beauty of light through leaves. On social media, become a quiet revolutionary. Scroll less. Share less about your path. Use the platforms for connection or simple inspiration, but guard your attention like the precious resource it is. The marketplace will keep calling with new trends and teachers. You answer with a gentle no more often. Thank you, but I have enough for now. This boundary creates space for real living. You see the contrast now, don't you? The old way collected experiences and identities. The new way lives presence in what already is. The old way sought specialness. The new way finds freedom in ordinariness. Both paths feel meaningful at first, but only one leads to lasting peace. Conclusion. You have walked a courageous path through these words. You faced the seductive trap of spiritual materialism. You traced its roots in our hungry, busy world. You recognized the warning signs in your own life with honesty. You felt the hidden costs, not with shame, but with clear eyes. You learned grounded practices that return you to simplicity. And you discovered how to live this truth in the midst of everyday responsibilities, relationships, and distractions. Now something deeper awaits. The end of seeking. Not the end of growth. Not the end of wonder. But the end of the restless search for another experience, another identity, another version of yourself that will finally feel complete. True spirituality, at its heart, is not another beautiful product you add to your collection. It is the gentle, sometimes fierce dissolution of the one who seeks, the quiet falling away of the seeker altogether. The journey we have shared invites you now into radical honesty. Look gently at your life. Where are you still performing? Where do you reach for the next teaching instead of meeting this moment? Where does the old consumer mind whisper that you need just one more thing to be whole? Ask these questions often, not as punishment, but as an act of profound love. Honest self-inquiry is the lamp that lights the way home. Courageous practice follows naturally. You don't need perfect conditions. You need only your willingness to show up, day after day, breath after breath. Return to the simple sitting, the ordinary mindfulness, the surrender to what arises. Stay when it feels dry. Stay when doubt visits. Stay when joy surprises you. This steady commitment, rooted in humility, does what no retreat or certification ever could. It softens the edges of the ego. It opens the heart. It reveals the sacred already present in your ordinary life. Remember, you are not becoming a more spiritual person. You are discovering who you are when all personas drop away. The awareness that watches thoughts. The presence that holds both sorrow and laughter. The love that needs no audience. This is not another identity to wear. It is the ground beneath every identity. It is what remains when seeking ends. As you close this book and return to your day, carry a vision with you. Imagine a world where thousands, then millions, step out of the spiritual marketplace, not with anger, but with clear seeing and soft hearts. People living with less pretense and more presence. Families where conversations go deeper because no one needs to sound evolved. Workplaces where integrity and attention matter more than appearing mindful. Communities that gather in simplicity, sharing silence, honest words, and practical help, without hierarchies or spiritual branding. In this world, spirituality is not a lifestyle. It is life itself, the way you hold a crying child, the patience you bring to a struggling friend, the care with which you eat, work, rest, and love. Awakening is no longer special. It becomes ordinary holiness, available to anyone willing to meet reality without filters. You can live this now, not perfectly, never perfectly, but sincerely. Each small return to presence adds to a quiet revolution, a revolution of depth in a shallow age, of truth in a world of images, of freedom from the very self that once sought so desperately. The seeking has served you. It brought you here. Now you can lay it down, like a traveler setting down a heavy pack after a long road. What remains is lighter than you imagined, more intimate, more alive. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your sincerity. The real work, the beautiful work, continues in your life, moment by moment, breath by breath.